Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kaylee Jean, and if you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. I'm super excited to be getting into your September 2021 monthly reading, and we will be continuing with the little tradition of doing a pick a decks. And for those of you who want to support my work and continue to study astrology, I will put the link below to the workshop. This is just a fun workshop that I have made for you guys on using astrology to balance your daily life and your routines. And this is just a really cheap, $10 workshop that I've recorded, and it also comes with a workbook. So if you are interested in reorganizing and redesigning your life according to astrological rhythms, I will put that below. This is something that I designed just, for people who want to support my work and continue to study astrology with me in ways that I have personally found useful. So again, that link will be below the video, and thank you so much. Let's get into the astrology for this month. First of all, September has some really interesting energy. I expect September to feel different. For many of you guys, if you feel like the last couple months have been sort of a blur, I feel like September is really going to represent kind of like a turning of the chapters. And of course, obviously we do have the equinox. So if you're in the Northern Hemisphere on the 22nd, we'll be going into fall, which is my favorite season, but I also have been really loving summer this year as well. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, then of course you're going into spring. So definitely that by itself is going to be a seasonal shift. However, some of these things that we have going on astrologically this month will definitely represent changes in trend for many of us, and definitely a different feel. So one of the things that I want to just say right from the beginning is that on the 2nd of September, we actually have Mars moving to oppose Neptune. And Mars will be in Virgo and Neptune is in Pisces. And so when you get a Mars opposition Neptune, it's a little rough. When we look at like the energies of this, to really break down the symbolism, Mars is, the warrior side, it's aggression, it's, action, whereas Neptune is kind of dreams, can also be related to illusions, and can also be related to illness. And so, whenever you have active midpoints with Mars Neptune, sometimes that can sort of correlate with infection or things that have to do with feeling under the weather. So just be really careful. I'm definitely not one for hysteria or anything like that when it comes to health and well-being. I think, just being informed, being cautious, and being, conscientious about what you're doing is really the whole crux of it. So if you are concerned for your health, or if you have some health things going on, definitely the 2nd of September, just, be extra nurturing to yourself and take care, that you're not overexposing yourself to anything that could be, challenging for your system if you perceive that you are somebody who's more vulnerable. And I'm not just talking about the big one that we all know about, right? But I'm talking about just in general, anything, if it's drinking or if it's, any kind of activity that you would engage in that that your body doesn't necessarily agree with, you want to try and stay away from that in the beginning of the month, okay? Because of this aspect, because, it can be a little bit challenging on your system. And also particularly if you have anything around 22 degrees of Gemini or Sagittarius, because if you have personal placements around those degrees are going to be at kind of like crucial midpoints of the Mars-Neptune opposition. And so it will potentially be some hard energy for you. Or if you have things at 22 of Virgo and Pisces. So basically around 22 degrees of mutable signs. If you have any personal placements there, you want to also be particularly mindful of this, because that energy is potentially going to affect you more. So just not to say anything to be afraid, but just be aware, okay? The new moon, I have my notes right here. The new moon is on the 6th, and so that's going to be a really nice earthy new moon vibe, bringing in some, practical, earthy Virgo energy. So doing some things that have to do with practical goal setting or self-care, or getting into a new exercise regimen. If you're somebody who's been wanting to start a new routine in some way, that's going to be a really nice date to sort of set yourself up to, move forward with that. Okay. The next thing, I will probably just have to make a separate video about this because there is a lot going on at the Pisces full moon on September 20th. So this is a really big moon with a lot of aspects going on, not just with the moon itself, but also with Mercury, Jupiter, and Pluto, and also Venus and Uranus will be in opposition, where Mercury will be in trine to Pluto and in trine to Jupiter and square Pluto. So, and then the moon itself obviously will be opposing the sun, but it will be conjunct Neptune with orb. And then the sun will also be conjunct Mars. So again, at the end of the month, this kind of Mars-Neptune opposition energy that we felt, on exactness in the beginning of September, more towards, the last third of the month, on the 20th, when we have this full moon in Pisces, it's going to be activating that energy again because the sun and moon are getting involved in it. And with orb, it's all still kind of active. So that's the other time of the month on the 20th that I also wanted to express, to just be mindful. There are potentially some really creative things that can come out of this full moon. There are a lot of things that may be positive that come out of this kind of creative tension that we're going to be seeing. But I just want to stress that, if something's going on that feels tense, or if something's going on that feels maybe risky, or maybe makes you feel like you're more vulnerable in some ways, just manage that feeling and do what you have to do to be practical to nurture yourself at this time, because you might feel kind of pulled in different directions, or you may, with the Mars Neptune, that can also relate to propaganda, fear mongering, things that make us confused and sort of can cause us to misdirect our anger. So just be aware of that. If you are sort of finding yourself getting into an anxious state about something, you might benefit from taking some time to really meditate and come back to your center before doing anything about that, or before sort of taking any action, because there's a chance that if you are feeling any anger or frustration, it could be misdirected, right? Or it could be misguided even. So just be aware of that around the 20th of September, because that is definitely, it's a powerful full moon with a lot going on to it. So just again, be aware of that. Also, between the 10th and the 14th, we're going to have two important ingresses. Venus will be moving into Scorpio, which is her sign of detriment, and Mars will be moving into Libra, which is his sign of detriment. So I don't want this to all sound kind of like Debbie Downer stuff. It's really not. It's just something to be aware of, that, when Venus goes into Scorpio, that can manifest in a couple of ways. One of the things that we can feel is that we become much more committed to the things that we're committed to, or we feel that much more able to focus our energy and really channel, it's the Scorpio energy, really channel our focus and our intense, willingness to commit ourselves, willingness to go deep, maybe with a subject or with some kind of branch of study. Perhaps that's one of the more positive ways to manifest this. Sometimes when we have Venus going into Scorpio, it can kind of signify feeling almost a deeper need to create the joy for yourself in your life, because with Venus in Scorpio, it kind of reminds us, Venus is what we love, right? And Scorpio is that I will find the truth no matter what, so if there's something in our life that's not really cohesive, right? If there's something in our life that maybe doesn't bring us joy anymore, or that we feel trapped in, when Venus moves into Scorpio, it's harder to ignore those things. And it's one of those ingresses that tends to really make us feel like we need to seek out more of what we love and, kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. with Mars going into Libra, this can be a positive thing, at times, especially depending on where it is in your chart. But Mars is a little bit uncomfortable in Libra because he feels like he has to be, nice because Libra is like more of a sign that, people with a lot of Libra, they tend to be a little bit more agreeable, a little bit more, objective, and wanting to see things from multiple perspectives and sort of wanting things to be harmonious and sort of go with the flow. And Mars wants to make things happen, for himself. And so that's the archetypal challenge there, is like finding a way to balance our will or maybe our feelings or our desires with having to be polite perhaps in different situations. So definitely when that happens, I think that's on the 14th I wrote down. Yeah. On the 14th, when Mars goes into Libra, it could be a good time to really process your emotions about things or to do some journaling. When Mars is going through Libra, you might realize that there's some areas of your life where you kind of put yourself to the side, or alternatively where you may have like misdirected anger that went in, backwards on yourself, and kind of processing that and realizing, that that's something that you can actually work with and work on within you without needing anyone else's validation or, permission or approval. So those were just some of the things. Also, at the end of the month, Mercury is going to be turning retrograde on the 27th. And so leading up to that, we'll have the station, and it's going to kind of, be a little bit of a slowdown when it comes to Mercury-related tasks. So if you have some kind of contracts that you want signed or some kind of negotiation that you want to do, maybe try and get it done before like the 22nd, 23rd, just to be safe. As Mercury is going to be slowing down at that time. So, all right, let's go ahead and do the deck pick. So, I think I knocked off this quartz. So for this month, we have the Tarot Moha, which is just one of my favorite decks, and I love it for this time of year. It's so warm and golden and just beautiful. We also have the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot, which is just a more brilliantly illustrated Rider-Waite deck, which I also really love this, and it has a selenite wand. And we have the Golden Universal Tarot with the quartz. So just relax yourself, tune in, and just choose the deck that resonates the most with you at this time, and we'll get into the reading. All right, if you guys chose the Tarot Moha, let's go ahead and get into your reading. All right, so we've got the King of Swords and the Ten of Wands, followed by the Six of Pentacles and the Sun. We've got the Emperor with the Six of Cups, the Queen of Swords, and wow, the Queen of Pentacles, which is very Empressy in this deck. So I feel like if you chose this deck, the Tarot Moha, there's something going on in your life that I think you're really striving for, like you're aspiring. If you chose this deck, there's something that you're reaching for that is a stretch. You're reaching for some kind of growth beyond your current means, or your current knowledge level, or something along those lines. Because you have the King of Swords, which represents high ideals and the highest aspects of the intellect, the mind, and honesty and ethics as well. But then you also have the Ten of Wands, which is like, feeling exhausted. So I feel like you're really, these cards are coming up to show that like in the beginning of September, you're really striving to achieve something, and you're pushing yourself. And so I think that's something that needs to be sort of acknowledged, because that's coming through so strongly in the cards, I feel like you might need to continue on your present journey, right? Whatever you're trying to accomplish is worthwhile to you. But I think you may need a little bit of rest, or you might need to ask for a little bit of help from someone, maybe even like negotiate some help. Like if you have somebody that maybe if this is something, in the sphere of like education or something along those lines, it's like getting a tutor, right? Or asking a fellow student to study with you, or asking your teacher for some more guidance, or even asking if it's something totally different. It could be if you have too much going on, it's like asking somebody in your life to pick up a little bit of the slack, that you can't just get to because you're so full. Your life is full right now, clearly with the 10 of Wands. So, and that's like what I think, like going into the second week, there is this feeling of like a rebirth that happens when you do ask for help, or when you do accept maybe some help that's being offered to you. So around the middle of the month, I think it's almost like you kind of, in a way, it's almost like you raise the white flag a little bit and you're like, okay, I actually do need help, and I think actually that is very liberating for you, and it creates this sort of feeling of being reborn, and this feeling with the Sun card of being able to achieve what you've set out to achieve, So it's actually really good. I just think that you need a little bit of practical support with the Six of Pentacles. You have to be okay not doing everything yourself. And I think that whatever you're working on, if it is like a career thing or a business project, having a second pair of eyes on it anyway could be useful to you at this time, right? And that's really what the Sun card is also saying. So don't be afraid to ask for some support, or even if it's like talking to a therapist for some of you, or getting a consultation of some kind, that can really reinvigorate you if you have lost a little bit of your spark because you've been trying so hard on your own. Getting that like conversation going with someone else might feel like like heaven sent. It might feel like just what you needed to fill your cup and re-inspire you to keep going. So the Emperor and the Six of Cups, you have this other six coming up again, and the sixes represent harmony for the most part. And so when you see the Emperor with the Six of Cups, this could be relating to, for some of you, like a sense of being reunited with a father figure. That could be one way of looking at it, because the Six of Cups can represent childhood, and old friends and people from our past. It also is a Sun and Scorpio card. So for some of you, if the Emperor represents like a male figure in your life, again, doesn't have to be a father figure, but just any male energy in your life, they could be a Scorpio, and that could be another added layer of synchronicity for you with this reading. But basically it's like I feel like there's some kind of positive energy around either like a father, or the concept of a man in your life, maybe somebody in your career who's like a mentor, or something like that could also be hinted at here. But overall, the Six of Cups is more of a personal card, so that's why I'm leaning towards more so like something in your personal life. But of course, a lot of the readings I do are for professionals and people who are working with their creativity in some way. And so in that context, this could be like a beneficial mentor coming into your sphere and giving you some guidance, or supporting your work somehow. So maybe even somebody investing, or somebody, giving you some advice and pointers, But no matter what, this is definitely a positive energy. It's an energy of like recognition. And it's not so much that I feel like you need the recognition from someone outside of yourself, but it's more like, okay, all this work that I've put into something, it's starting to pay off, because other people who are very professional and advanced are actually can recognize like what I'm doing and can recognize my skill sets. It's more that kind of energy, I would say. And so, that is part of the process, right? If you're doing something really technical, it feels good to see that, like, you're somehow on a similar level with somebody who you would look up to, who's mastered that skill, right? And it feels good to see some kind of correlation there between you and somebody who's further along than you somehow. So that actually just looks positive to me, honestly. Yeah, or it could be like one of you is like reuniting with a father figure or something along those lines. Now, at the end of the month, you have these two queens, which is interesting because they feel very different to me. So I'm wondering if these are different people. I mean, you do have the King of Swords and the Queen of Swords in this reading, so some of you could be going through a rite of passage, such as like a marriage ceremony, because these cards are the same. They're the same suit. And sometimes when that happens, there's some kind of serious commitment between two people who are like-minded, right? So business partnership or marriage or something like that could be a theme for some of you this month, right? And with the Queen of Pentacles, it almost feels a little bit different, like these are just either two different aspects of yourself, or perhaps two different people in your life, two different approaches, to getting things done. And the Queen of Pentacles is very... she's very earthy, she's very grounded, she nurtures people in very practical ways. She would invite you in for a cup of soup or something. Like, she's just a very warm and inviting, but also very like smart with money and smart with practical things. And the Queen of Swords is kind of like that friend that just always tells you the truth no matter what, and even if it might hurt your feelings. And so that type of personality can have a little bit more of a colder feel, and it can also be it can represent people who are just a little bit harder to get along with, but you can recognize that they live according to their own like perception of the world, and at least they're true to that, so you can appreciate that. So you might have some differences coming up, but I think if you find the commonality that runs underneath everything, you will be able to sort of find the harmony, within this situation. If you are one of these people or neither, and they both represent different people in your life, I feel like there's some potential for conflict with women, or with women who represent some of the qualities that I just mentioned. So just be aware of that, and again, try and find the root or the commonality. The oracles are intention and surrender your attachment to results. Interesting. On the surrender card, it says, the formula for success is to do all you can to make things happen and then let go of the results. Holding on too tightly to a desired outcome can sabotage it. Interesting. Yeah, I think, this is maybe one of those months where just staying true to your focus is the goal. Like whatever's going on outside of you, and this is kind of runs similar to like the Mars Neptune stuff, whatever narratives are going around that create fear, or whatever kind of like things seem to be going on around you that seem to be out of your control, like all of that stuff actually doesn't really matter as much as we tend to think it does. Okay. And I think that this is really about surrendering your attachment to like the outer world, showing you that it's moving in a direction that you feel comfortable with, because the bigger thing here is that you are creating your reality moment by moment through your perceptions. And it's not always useful for you to focus on things that may or may not even be true, right? And that you also don't have control over anyway. So I think this is kind of about really staying rooted to yourself this month, and, letting all that stuff just, wash away like water off a duck's back. Don't let it bother you, because when you are living in your intention, you're able to live the life that you want, which no one can take away from you, because your intention is the most important thing, and that can't be removed from you. That can't be, swept out from underneath your feet. You know, your consciousness is your reality. So I think that's really important for someone out there who chose this deck to hear. But overall, you know, I do see some high points here and some potential like new support coming to you, especially if you're willing to receive it. So that's your message. If you chose the Tarot Muha, I hope this is helpful for you, and thank you so much. Please leave a comment and a thumbs up if you enjoyed this reading, and also let me know what you felt about it. Okay, talk to you next time. All right, if you guys chose the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot, here is your reading. While I was tuning in, I was getting an impression of groups. I kept seeing people standing in a group. And so I'm wondering if some of you are, I don't know, getting involved somehow with some kind of like-minded people, some kind of like-minded group of people. Oh, you got a jumper. Let's trust that. And we're going to get you a Surrender Oracle card. But I think that there's something here about really connecting more so with others. It could be family, but it could also just be, you know, in the broader world. So let's see. So we've got the Emperor coming up with the Empress. Wow, and I was just saying family, you know, it's like mom and dad right there. Not saying that's literally the case, but oh my God, mom and dad and then the child. Wow, and the Fool. So we've got Emperor, Empress, Page of Cups, and the Fool. Whoa, whoa, guys, like whoa. Magician, Page of Wands, whoa. Three of Swords and the Tower. Okay. I haven't been like this alternatingly like impressed and then flabbergasted by a reading in a while. Honestly, this is really profound. So if you chose this deck, man, are you in for a ride? No, I'm just kidding. You're definitely in for a really significant month, though. And I'm not saying that, like, just because so many of these cards are majors and you have the Tower and the Three of Swords, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is, you know, a bad month or a month where huge things are going on, although some of you, you know, it will be. Not bad, but just, you know, big life changes, I should say. But I feel like this is also just a powerful month for realizations about yourself and about your path forward and just how you perceive your ability to create your future for yourself. I should say, like, how you navigate through the landscape of your life. You're realizing that there might be other trails that could take you through the landscape of your life in a more exciting manner, right? And in a way that gives you more of what you actually want in your life. But in order to follow them, you may have to let go of your current status quo somehow, which is the Tower at the end of the month. So if that's the case, you know, I want you to be kind with yourself and gentle, but let's get into, you know, the nitty gritty here. So the first week of the month, you've got the Emperor and the Empress. So something about this feels like the reading does need to be read all together. But in general, when we see the Emperor and the Empress coming up, you know, this can be really positive. It can suggest a marriage or a union, or it can loosely relate to parental figures, or if you have, you know, if you're married and you are newly married, or maybe a younger person, or for whatever reason you have never purchased property before, the Emperor and the Empress could show this sense of like leveling up in terms of being a boss in life, or, you know, kind of taking advantage of your prior efforts, you know, spending money on a property, or becoming like the proprietor of a business, right? And where I'm going with this is it's kind of like the it's almost like this Spanish word like dueño is coming to mind, like being a master of something. So like becoming landlords, or purchasing your own house to live in and when you've always rented in the past, or maybe, like I said before, hiring employees or starting a business. But there's this sense of leveling up and this like feeling of maturation that's happening with these cards where it's like, oh my gosh, I have more people relying on me now, or I am a parent for the first time now, or I just bought this house and now I have to make sure that it gets fixed and that the property taxes get paid, and that the lawn gets mowed, and you have these things that maybe you didn't have on your plate before. So hopefully that makes sense. Is there's definitely a feeling with these cards of like maybe you and someone else really leveling up in some way, and there's a feeling of abundance with that, and there's certainly a feeling of empowerment with that. But you have the Page of Cups and the Fool, so it's almost like as you are taking life maybe more seriously, or you find yourself in this more serious position, you also have to maintain that kind of childlike spirit. And maybe in the middle of the month, it could be beneficial for you to, I don't know if you have access to travel. Some places are different than others right now, but if you can, maybe go on a trip or do something that really ignites your inner child or your inspiration. Maybe do something creative and artistic if you're stuck at home. Do some painting, or do something creative with that Page of Cups. Maybe start writing your novel, something like that. Or with the Fool, it is literally about potentially traveling, going to the mountains, going to the sea, going on a hike. Like, this is about really getting out of your normal circumstances. So in a way, when you compare these, they are kind of opposites, because the Emperor and the Empress are like very solidly seated on their throne. They're comfortable, they're rooted, and they have these responsibilities they need to oversee everything that's going on. But then you've got this Page of Cups and the Fool, which is like, no, get up out of your chair, get out there. You need some variety, you need something different, you need some adventure. Okay, so get that however you can, according to your own situation. But don't get too serious, I feel, is the message. Like, your situation's good, but I think you need almost like a little bit of change, Maybe it's just it's too much stability, or perhaps too much responsibility. Now, in the third week of September, you have the Magician and the Page of Wands. So this is definitely about working some magic, because we have wands in both of these images. Pages in general represent people who are students or people who are starting out with something. And in this case, with wands being a symbol of magic, it could be, you might be doing a ritual, or you might be wanting to engage with your spiritual life in a new way. And I think that this is it can be really fun. It can be empowering. It can be, even doesn't even have to be magic or occult related. It could have to do with a science or a branch of study. With the Magician, it's also mercurial, so it's something that you would be working on as far as a skill, or as far as some kind of tool and mastery over the tool, and I think there is something liberating here. But I want to just like not caution you, but just, if you are kind of working with something in your life that is opening doors for you, you want to be careful that you're not like just opening the floodgates and having some kind of more drastic reaction to things. This is a really interesting message, but I almost feel like these cards are connected. And I feel like on the one hand, it's great to be enthusiastic, but it's kind of like one of those things where, I've been, for example, like I've been doing metaphysical work for years now. And one of the things that you notice about people who are kind of just getting into metaphysics, or just getting into maybe astrology, or so on and so forth, like insert kind of occult science, right? Even ritual work. for example. And there is such a thing as being like maybe overly enthusiastic or a little bit unwise in terms of how you are going about it, because there are real things that you have to be aware of. For example, and I made a video about this before, which you can find on my playlist on my channel. But for example, when a lot of times when people get really interested in astrology, they start, doing these like rituals at the middle of an eclipse, but without realizing that like maybe that eclipse is kind of malefic, and they'll go outside and do some, really involved ritual when the moon is, going like conjunct the south node, and it has like it's square Pluto and like all these kind of gnarly aspects. And you actually want to be careful, because if you really think that you're doing anything, then you have to accept that like there's things that you might not really be aware of that could actually still be influences, right? And so I think the thing is, and this isn't always the most fun message to convey, because usually when people come into the world of astrology or into the world of, metaphysics, they're so excited and they're having all these synchronicities, and they don't really want to hear a more serious message of like, okay, but you're working with something real, and so you have to be a little bit more cautious and mind yourself, mind what you're doing. And I think that is really what it comes down to, is that this is also of the mind. You have to use your mind. And I see a lot of people going with more like only like focusing in on their heart or their gut, and those are obviously super important, but it's like the culmination of like the synthesis of all three, like your logic brain, your heart, and your gut, finding the sort of complex amalgamation of all of those kind of centers where you can get knowledge, and that synthesis is really intuition. Intuition doesn't just come from your gut. It also comes from things like your prior skills that you've developed. Muscle memory, I think, can be intuitive. It can be your, thought process and like your intuitive connection with even math and numbers and things, that aren't necessarily only feeling driven. So I think it's really everything. But I think there's something here in these cards. It's like you're maybe excited about something, but then, it could be a little bit rough if you pursue it without, if you pursue what you're excited about with abandon, without thinking about like what else is going on around you, without taking that break. And I'm guilty of this too, because when I really get interested in something, I can't stop thinking about it and I just like zero in on it. Okay, but you might want to be cautious and take a little bit of a step back, especially because we do have such harsh aspects this month. You might want to just be cautious that you're being, grounded, and that you're not trying to do too much. And that could be true of, your metaphysical practices or your spiritual practices, but it could also be doing too much in your business. Like, are you stretching yourself too thin? Are you super excited about a big project and then you're realizing, holy crap, I'm like completely burnt out all of a sudden, like your battery is just zapped, And so you just have to be mindful, because I think there is a lot of strength in you at this time, and there's a deep well of inspiration and a deep well of energy to be expended. But I just want to caution you, because I think with the Three of Swords and the Tower, it's like, don't overextend yourself to the point where like your bank account is overdrawn before you even realize, that that's what's happening. That's kind of like the warning. And I'm sorry if that sounds like really ominous. It's not ominous. It's just, there is something here to be aware of that I really want to communicate. That's like, know what your limits are and pace yourself, because that's what's going to be the most sustainable over time. So don't just live for the present moment, like live in the present moment, but also with the ability to project your consciousness forward and plan for the future. But be doing that like while you're in the present moment. So that's kind of the trick, right? But by the end of the month, for some of you, there could be something that's jarring. There could be something that's a little bit disappointing. And so that's why I just spent so much time going over this stuff right now that's a little bit harder to talk about, but I think it's important because I feel like with this Magician and the Page of Cups, ironically, while this energy of enthusiasm and capability can, possibly contribute to the jarringness of this, right? Using the example of like somebody who's spending too much money without realizing, oh my God, I have to pay that big bill later this month, and I didn't realize I was going to overdraw my account, right? Talking about that as an example, but that could apply to your energy on a physical level. It can apply to, your metaphysical practice, etc. Ironically, this enthusiasm and capability is contributing to the difficulty of this. But then guess what? The solution turns out to also be this, right? It's that magician mindset of nothing's going to stop me. I can, whatever situation I find myself in, I can always turn it around. I can be creative and find a solution that works for everyone, not just myself. And that's how you're going to get out of it. So it's ironic that like your excitement and maybe your over enthusiasm could get you into a little bit of a quagmire, or they could be unrelated. But either way, like the magician is still the answer. So always coming back to working on your own mindset. So your surrender card is surrender your need to always be right. And your soul tree's oracle card is guidance. So surrender your need to always be right says, give others a gift of letting them be right. Be yielding, not rigid. This will help improve conflicts and improve your relationships. So, I'm wondering now if having some kind of mentor or looking to somebody who you trust, who has handled things, like situations of adversity, or who has accomplished really profound goals. I'm wondering if maybe finding someone like that, and you don't actually have to meet with them if you don't have the means to do that, right? But listening to podcasts of somebody who's achieved a lot, or who's been through a difficult experience and come out of it, healthy and even better and stronger than ever. These kinds of things are what provide guidance for us. And what guidance really is recognizing like ideals that are worth reaching for in the outer world, right? Because there are people that embody qualities that we haven't completely figured out how to have within ourselves yet. And so it's one of the best aspects of people who are like a coach or a mentor is somebody who's actually, harnessed some sort of power within themselves, gotten something under, their influence in their own life, and really, being able to learn from that is really one of the best things about life. So I think with surrender your need to always be right and guidance, it's kind of saying like, you don't need to have all of the answers within you. There are like other people that have found their own way, through things that you can learn a lot from, right? So it's a little bit different than the message, which is true that we contain everything within us, but there is something healing about allowing yourself to look at someone external and realize like, respect their journey and know that like you can learn something from it, right? So you don't have to be the expert this month. You can be a disciple. You can be a student of life. And it doesn't mean that you take what other people do, just wholesale, everything the same, but you can be inspired by another person's journey of figuring something out for themselves, can help you alight your own inner wisdom so that you can light your own path. So I hope that's helpful. Definitely, look for the guidance and maybe ask for the guidance, to come to you when you feel that you need it. I hope you have an amazing month. If you enjoyed this reading, please let me know in the comments below, and I will be getting on to the next reading right now. All right, if you chose the Golden Universal Tarot and the Quartz, this is your reading. All right, we've got the Nine of Cups, Two of Swords, King of Cups, Page of Wands, Judgment, Six of Pentacles, Eight of Wands, and the King of Pentacles. Interesting. Okay, so the first thing that's coming to me, if you chose the Golden Universal Tarot deck, is, okay, so when I looked at these two cards, I instantly heard the words, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think this relates to something in your life that you are actually pretty happy with. And with the Nine of Cups, you are feeling this kind of, maybe a little bit of complacency, honestly, because something is pretty good in some way. Or it's just, it's like, yeah, like there's something kind of peaceful, I guess. Maybe it feels simple with the Two of Swords and the Nine of Cups. Maybe it's like simple pleasures in life, or maybe it's, a peaceful energy in your home, or maybe it's, keeping things simple internally, like you're, not paying attention to news anymore. And it's like, well, on the one hand, I'm not as informed, but on the other hand, I feel way better. So it's kind of a toss-up. It's kind of like this thing that I think you're almost telling yourself, I should be doing more, or I should be paying attention to that, or I should be keeping abreast of that, or, I need to be aware, or I need to strive, and I need to push myself, or, whatever it is, fill in the blank. But actually, I think the cards are saying, no, like, if it's good, it's good. I think because we live in such an abundant world in comparison to how things were in the past, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying the world's perfect now, but in comparison to how human beings have lived for millennia up to this point, we live in this like relatively, insanely abundant existence. And I think that we have this feeling of needing to strive or to earn more, or to achieve, and that's not always like what we need to do. And I think that there's something here with the Nine of Cups and the Two of Swords. It's almost saying, if you're happy, you don't have to change anything that you're doing. If you are actually enjoying what you're doing, and maybe you're doing things a little bit more minimalist in your life, maybe you're keeping things more simple, maybe you're not cluttering your mind with a bunch of drama that you felt like you should have just to be a good person, you needed to do that somehow, don't worry about it. You might feel selfish, but whatever, that's an illusion. Like, what you're doing is working for you. You don't have to focus on anything else. It's like this sign that I have in my closet, which I really love. And I think it's actually a song too, but when I got it, I didn't know it was a song. I just really liked the saying of mind your own biscuits and life will be gravy. Life can be gravy. You don't have to focus on everybody else's biscuits and make sure that, all that stuff is going on. No, trust that everybody has their point of attraction. Trust that everything's happening as it should. And just come back to yourself for a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of a break. And so that's kind of like the energy you're going into the month with. I will say that you end the month on a more active energy. So maybe this is just like a temporary little breather that you're giving yourself. But the King of Cups and the Page of Wands suggest this kind of newfound inspiration or creativity coming into your life in the second week of September. Around the middle of the month, I see you kind of really focusing in on something that inspires you or uplifts you or has meaning to you. And the Page of Wands is showing that you're actually taking meaningful steps towards, doing that or being that or creating that. So whatever it is, if it's an idea for a book or if it's a new artistic venue that you're exploring, or a new tool that you're going to master, or a new area of study, you are taking these steps, and I think you're kind of feeling like, wow, this thing is coming together actually, right? And so there's definitely some creative energy coming in that I think it would be really worthwhile for you to use. In the third week, you have this interesting energy. So you have the Six of Pentacles and Judgment. So some of you, there could be some kind of legal judgment regarding like finances that could be coming up. If any of you are dealing, I know Judgment isn't always necessarily associated with the legal system. That would be more the Justice card. But the fact that it is Judgment, and then you have the Six of Pentacles, which shows like the scales, the guy's holding the scales. I think this might be, if some of you are waiting for a legal proceeding that has to do with, funds may or may not be released to you, that kind of thing. You may feel that in the third week of September that you're kind of seeing some movement on that, or there's a decision being made on that. And you might be kind of worried going into it with the Judgment card. It feels kind of like a big deal for some of you. However, others of you, this could be about asking for a raise even, and seeing what the decision is, or it could be putting your work out there into the world and seeing, how people like it. Again, Judgment can relate to a lot of things, but it can be about this sort of life-giving moment of clarity where you're like, okay, I'm making myself vulnerable to the judgment of others somehow. And we are always doing that all the time. And if our society is, at least moderately fair, right? If we're not in a totally corrupt family, or we're not in a totally corrupt corporation, or we're not in a totally corrupt city, or, whatever, then if we're doing something well, and we're being honest, and we're conducting ourselves with integrity, then usually the judgment experience ends up not really being negative for us, right? It's just jarring to, put something out there into the world, and like, let's say you're making a YouTube channel or something, you put it out there, you've done a lot of good research, you got a good camera, you made sure that you did everything you were supposed to do in order to create valuable information for people. Then, chances are you're going to connect with some people who appreciate it, and you're going to start getting traction in your business, or, so on and so forth. You kind of get what I'm saying. It's still an inside job, right? It's still an inside job of making yourself able to face a kind of a judgment experience. But in the end, I think this one is going to be positive for you if you chose this deck, because it's like a judgment is being made in your favor somehow. So you're not the one in control in the third week of September, except with the preparation that you go into it with. And that could be a difficult conversation with someone, like I said, or it could be, asking your boss something if you work for a company, or it could also be just putting yourself out there in the world in a new way. You are going to get the support that you need. And that brings me to the Eight of Wands going into the King of Pentacles, because it's like you have this, it's almost like that phrase, like when preparation meets opportunity, and that's luck. I think it was Oprah that said that, but yeah, I think it was. I have to check. I get like into this intuitive state when I'm reading, and I like have no idea, so I might be misquoting people, but I'm pretty sure it was her. So there's something about this though that's like with the King of Pentacles, it's like who you are as a person, and the preparation that you've done in your own life with your own learning and your own ideas and your own efforts and your own actions and your own mastery, like effort that you've put towards mastery, is meeting some kind of opportunity, right? And that's the wands aiming down. And I feel like they're almost aiming at the target of his pentacle, which is like a symbol of his resources, right? So this is you. You've got your resources, whether your resources are, your skills, could be literally your money for some of you, but your skills, your value that you can add, the knowledge that you hold, the effort that you're willing to put into things. An opportunity is coming in, that's like a perfect match is what I'm seeing at the end of the month. So it looks really good, a really good time for, just exploring opportunities that could also improve your life on a financial basis, because you do have these pentacles at the end of the month. So definitely some new earning potential at the end of September that I think is really the result of the past efforts that you've put into, preparing yourself to take advantage of these kinds of opportunities. So I think, that's the biggest thing that I see there is just be ready, because, and maybe that's why you have this more quiet energy in the first, 2 or 3 weeks of the month, where you're just almost resting up before like a big expansion, or before a great opportunity just comes into place. Oh, wow. So your guidance from the soul trees is risk. And your surrender card is surrender comparisons with other people. And I'll read this one to you. It says, keep your eyes trained on yourself. Focus on your own strengths, attractiveness, and power. It's beautiful. So yeah, that really makes sense. I think it is going to be important for you to take some risks, but I want to caution you to do it maybe more towards the end of September, or maybe even in October, when after Mercury turns direct again. I think this is more of a longer term energy that these cards are pointing to. I don't think it's like perfectly limited to September. I think these are broader energies that you're dealing with, but by the end of the month, you're really going to start to feel the rubber meet the road when it comes to advancing yourself in your life, specifically professionally and financially. And you're going to have to take some intelligent risks, right? Take some risks, not too much, because you don't want to go overboard, right? You want to always take risks that are measured and cautious for yourself, so that you don't put yourself in a situation where you might be more stressed, right? Because it also is about your well-being on a physical, emotional, and mental level. And so sometimes we can, take risks, but if we do too much, it might still work out, but we're nail biting the whole time. So just, find out what makes sense for you in your situation that does get you out of your comfort zone. That's the key, because it is risk, but that still feels authentic and true to your situation and balanced, okay? And then with surrender comparisons to other people, I think maybe that's actually one of the hidden things that didn't really come up as much in your tarot cards, but maybe that's one of the hidden things about your situation that makes it a little bit more difficult, because you might be looking at what other people are doing and feeling like, in your industry, let's say, for example, feeling like you're just a little bit different, or like you're a little bit out there. But, I think maybe that's also what the first few weeks of the month are really about, is deepening your authentic relationship to what you're doing, and, being sure that you're doing it in a way that is personally pleasing, and at least that makes sense to you, because the truth is you don't need to meet anyone else's standards. The world is totally different now. Anybody can do anything. If you have a way to connect to the internet, you can, share what you have, and, offer your services or create your artwork or whatever it may be. And actually, there's more and more people that are also, able to express their true desires. And so there's always going to be people that resonate with what you have to give, as long as what you have to give is honest, to yourself, authentic to yourself, and is based in, real effort that you've put into it, right? And as long as that piece is there, then, you're golden. I feel like you're on track, and you just have to, come a little bit out of your comfort zone, maybe more towards the end of the month or even in October, but just know it's coming up. So rest up. And take care, and please let me know in the comments what you thought about this reading. If you had anything that you wanted to add, I would love to hear it. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time.